Hello, friends, and welcome to the Collective Awakening podcast. Absolute pleasure to welcome back Lewis Powell. Been with us many, many times, but normally it's been online. Over the past really 4 to 5 years, we've done many, many podcasts on different subjects, but it's great to welcome you to the Purple Mountain once again. I know you've been here many times, and it'd be great to talk about this journey that we've been on over the past 4 years now or more, of where you feel we're up to now in the world, or what you feel is going on at this moment in time.
It's a bit existential question.
Yeah, it's like bang. Let's start with a bang.
Yeah, why not? Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for having me again. First time sitting in person doing it.
Yeah,
which is nice. It's to be able to connect with each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Person, I think is great. So thank you for having me. Okay, so where do we think we are? Okay, that's like I said, it's a big question. It's been such a journey since we first met you. Before was it like 2019? Was it when we first met you? Yeah, so it's like 5 years now, isn't it?
Yeah. And
around that time, I personally, I can speak for myself. On a collective, I do like to observe collective consensus and collective patterns. Something that's really, really interested me when I started doing work on myself was looking at my own patterns, looking at my own trauma, and looking how these traumas and how these conditions have created certain patterns within my life. So when I first started looking at that, also working with medicines and how medicines can, like Kambo, ayahuasca, things like that, can help you to, process and work through these distortions and conditions and patterns.
Yeah.
So since looking at myself, I also found that it was really interesting to be able to observe my own growth, but then also sort of then just checking in on the collective. Yeah. Now that might just be observing social media, because it's probably, how else can you observe collective consensus without looking on social media? You can't really, because we don't have that exposure to anywhere else apart from our own communities. Unless we look on social media. So the general consensus has shifted massively from 2019. I think that a big part of that was the COVID lockdowns and things like that. I think that brought a real sense of community for many people.
It did.
It brought a lot of fear into most people, but I found that it did actually push quite a lot of people together that were like-minded, especially like spiritual communities or people that were questioning. I think that I find my own personal growth of awakening was the first thing that was questioning things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think that was the first stage. So to be able, that was from 2010 to 2014 was this questioning thing, the conspiracy minefield, looking into that, started to question things, then started finding plant medicines and then going down that route. And then, it wasn't until 2020, literally 10 years later, that I was starting to observe that a little bit more in the collective. People starting to really question it. People that were calling me crazy for what I was doing 10 years before, now starting to question things. And you can see that through social media. You can observe people that especially with people that you've known in the past, and then seeing their change. I think that's a good way to sort of monitor and assess how the general consensus is starting to evolve or devolve. one or the other.
Depends which way you look at it.
Exactly. So the lockdown, I think, brought a lot of people together. And I remember it was 2014, I kept getting this prophecy, almost this, these dates, that there's going to be a big event that was happening in 2020 and 2025. we're nearly at 2025. So
Yeah.
let's see what happens there. I don't know if you remember when I mentioned it.
Yeah, I do.
About those dates. And yeah, I do believe that. And it's interesting because my intuition is something that's always guided me on my journey towards understanding myself, but also understanding collective as well.
Yeah.
Like logically, I can't explain a lot of things, but that's why I'm not guided by my logic.
Yes.
Do you know there's something inside that's guiding me
Do you
towards?
think that's the route a lot of people go on? Because I've never thought of it this way, of sort of finding the way through the conspiracy theory route, if you want to call it that, to something more, and then eventually finding themselves, doing the inner work, and then sort of the...
That's what I believe.
Yeah.
That's what I believe.
Yeah, because I've heard it many times. I mean, that's the journey I went on a little bit. It's similar. So, yeah.
I think that it's interesting, isn't it, to explore the differences between belief and knowing? Because I believe, so I'll say I believe, because, you know, I can say I know what's worked for me, but I can believe that the reason why we go through certain events is to bring us back to ourselves. Now, all of the initiations that I've been through, and some quite challenging ones throughout stepping onto this journey of self-discovery, have always led me back to trusting my intuition. Yeah. Which I believe is your inner knowing.
Yeah.
Which is the inner knowing, in my belief, is who you are. You know, and I think that these route of questioning things, it's like questioning conspiracies. You're actually questioning yourself.
Yeah.
You're questioning things on the outside, but actually you're questioning your own beliefs.
Yeah, questioning beliefs.
It's always about you. This is my belief. It's always a question about you. It's like I had this complex of that I didn't realize that I had until there was a hard lesson that brought me back to it, was that I had this need for validation that was kind of projected onto like a spiritual teacher or a shaman or something. I had this fantasy, and it is a fantasy. It was a complete fantasy. I can say that now. Yeah. And it was a complete fantasy that some shaman was going to tell me that I'm blessed, or I'm on some, like, you know, I'm a healer, or you know, I'm some kind of like, I don't know, because I had a calling. I knew I had this calling. I knew I had these gifts, but it's almost like I didn't believe it myself.
Looking for it to be acknowledged.
I needed it to be acknowledged by someone else. So I went to all around the world looking for some kind of teacher or some kind of shaman that was going to tell me that I was who I am.
Yeah.
Essentially. And, you know, I'm so glad that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Because I never would have found who I was if somebody was to tell me who I was.
You would have been still traveling around now.
It would have fed the pattern of me needing that validation. That's the problem, is that the greatest gift that these people that abused me throughout this journey or manipulated me, who I put my trust into, these teacher figures, actually they were doing me the greatest service by not giving me that validation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because I needed to find that out for myself. So, you know, without going into the full story of all the jungle experience, I'm sure there's other videos on that.
Yeah, check it out.
We can go into the jungle stories with the shaman and things like that. But it took me to go through these like smaller knockbacks or smaller, you know, manipulations to get to this big one that kind of like I intuitively picked up on before these negative events happened. And it took me to doubt my own intuition to get took on this like year-long, even longer, to fully process cycle of suffering for me to finally go, I know the truth.
Because knowing a little bit, knowing about that journey and that first experience you had, which is, I think it's on some of our earlier podcasts with you as well a few times, that what you found was almost the opposite. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, would you say it worked out for for your highest good.
Absolutely, 100 million
which is
percent.
that when the word when you talk, people say blessings come in disguise.
Yeah, exactly, because a curse is a blessing if it's the perception that you have of it.
Yeah.
If what happened with these, shaman or brujos, whatever you want to call it, if I was still feeding that curse, I would be cursed for the rest of my life. If I was still to believe that. And I still do feel the pressure of that from time to time, that old thought coming in, them old fears that bring these feelings back on again. Yeah. I don't believe that now. I've transcended it now. Whether that was true or not, I don't know. I actually had an experience when I was in the jungle that time where it was like the end of the world and there was like hell.
Yeah.
And I remember in that experience, actually, the fear of eternal damnation. Literally, that's what I had to go through, this process of eternal damnation. That was in my head. And that stayed with me. That trauma, that actual experience that I had with the ayahuasca stayed with me for up until this year.
Well, I believe that everything that happens for a reason. And I guess that when we talk about reincarnation, that part of your divine purpose is to work with these medicines. So do you feel that perhaps, you can always look back now with appreciation and gratitude that really it's been your initiation? Do you feel us working as a healer, shaman, whatever we want to label ourselves, that it was part of your initiation because you had to have those lessons?
Absolutely.
So that you can hold that space and you have that awareness, that understanding, strengthening your intuition. Do you think that's been really valuable to you?
Absolutely. It's 100% necessary because you're weak if you don't trust yourself. You're energetically vulnerable.
Yeah.
And when you find that knowing within yourself, now, like I say, this is not like I know everything. I don't. I'm never going to say that I know everything. I don't. But I know me. I know me and I trust me. Now, this isn't a logical thing. This is a inner knowing. That's why I created the Center Inner Guru, because everything led me back to this. Everything I need to know is within me. I don't need to really channel anything. I don't need to, look outside for anything else.
Yeah.
I don't need to be saved. I don't need a savior. Everything is down to me. Now, it comes to the point where I was in a really difficult situation after I got out of the jungle and I was looking for help and no help came. It doesn't matter. I went to one of the most respected, powerful healers that I'm aware of. And that person said that they couldn't help me. This is a Mexican curandero called Don Ramiro, who's very renowned for his, healings that he can do. And he said to me, there's nothing I can do. You fell into a spider's web and basically you're screwed. But that's exactly what I needed to hear. It's well, no, actually, because there's something inside of me that was like fire that was waiting to be lit. It was no, actually.
Yeah.
I'll decide that.
Yeah.
I'll decide that. And there's actually been many other experiences that I've had with ayahuasca since, where these apocalyptic almost scenarios have come up into my vision that I've been in when I've been journeying with it. And I remember a couple of times, even the last time that I'd done a deep solo journey on my own in Liverpool, and I was faced with this apocalyptic scenario again, and it completely consumed me, and I was quite devastated and feeling quite defeated to it. And something inside me just lit up again. It was no, I'll decide whether this is going to happen or not. And it all changed. And I was wow, actually, there's some power in knowing, and there's some power in what you believe in. So that's when I went on a whole journey of deeper understanding of myself, and then reflection on the previous experiences. And I still was quite traumatized by the experiences that I had in Peru with this apocalyptic, hell experiences that I had. And then I slowly started to realize, because I'd actually been doing a podcast. I had someone on my podcast and we were talking about Christianity and these type of things. And I was starting to explore and research more, into the Christianity concept and understanding looking into their belief of hell. And there was just something inside me, just knowing what illusion and what distortion within myself feels like when I'm clearing it, and then that clarity that you get when you released it. What I realized was that first experience that I had, where it was like hell, was actually my fear of it.
Oh. Wow.
So I was able to then move through it. I've completely let go of that now. And there was one point, I would even say, even up to a year ago, I'd still tremble when I talk about that experience. And like when I'd say like a year, 2 years, 3 years, up to 6 or 7 years after that first experience, I could barely talk about it because I was still afraid of that experience.
Was that a fear that you've come back to face, do you feel?
I believe that now. Yeah, I do believe that now. But I thought during that period of time that this is something that I'm going to carry with me to the end of my life. Because deeply ingrained in me was this fear of hell.
So do you feel that that's come from a past life, do you feel? Or do you think that
I think it comes from a collective as well as me, because I think that it could just be a cultural thing. I don't know. I don't know whether it's just personal or whether it's a collective, but I think that it's something that's deeply rooted ancestrally.
Yeah.
Within the people in the UK, for example, you only have to look at the UK and Ireland. Like when my mum was growing up in the 50s and 60s in Liverpool, if you had a child before wedlock, you would have the child took off you.
Yeah.
This is not that long ago.
No.
The Christianity as a whole has had, especially white European culture, is deeply ingrained within our culture for like millennia.
Definitely.
And I think that fear of hell, I mean, if you look at the ancient Greek mythology, before that, hell didn't exist then. It wasn't, there was the lords of the underworld, and, there was all these gods and beings that kind of like represented, the underworld and things like that, but there wasn't this fear of damnation. That was something that was brought in by Christianity. Before that, and probably the Torah, Judeo-Christianity, from that line. So the more research that I've done on this, I've actually able to unravel my own curse, so to speak, of this trauma that I had. Because now whether that's true or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
Nah, I can't say that like it's categorically true, and I've got no reason at all to want to try and prove that to anyone.
No.
I don't need to, because I've actually overcome something within myself.
Yeah. And
that is the fear of, I mean, what is the worst fear that you could possibly have? As a European white Christian,
eternal damnation.
You can't get any worse than eternal damnation, right? And
it's like you've gone to the bottom of the barrel there, and that gooey black stuff there, and you've actually immersed yourself in that, haven't you?
Exactly. Yeah. That's what it feels like. And now I've let go of it, and I can feel sometimes like that fear, like that I had experienced during this eternal damnation experience that I had. I can feel that sometimes, around and coming back, and it's like I don't believe that anymore. I don't subscribe to that channel anymore.
Yeah.
And I choose that, and by me choosing that, I now feel so much more free, because I'm not afraid of that anymore.
Well, you've freed yourself from it.
I freed myself from it. But I feel like, even though I was like researching into, like Christianity because of like, a podcast that I'd done with somebody, and then we explored certain things, and then I questioned my own beliefs again. I always, whenever there is a new concept or people present something to me, I'll question my own beliefs, and then I'll research. I'll not research just random research. There's something that's like going, okay, look down this path, like it does with the conspiracy. You can find your way to find the answers that you're looking for. Now, some people might say, oh, you can be biased towards what it is that you're looking for to try and confirm your own belief.
Yeah.
Now, to be honest, I don't really care. If that's what it is, it's actually helped me. It's just like the people that believe in Jesus, for example. If that helps them, then they're going to do anything that they can to reinforce that belief.
Yeah.
Even if someone said, here's the evidence, Jesus wasn't real, well, they're not going to believe it because that's what works for them.
Yeah.
Now, for me, I was plagued by this fear of hell for God knows how long, probably lifetimes. And now I've been able to free myself from it because I don't believe in it anymore.
Wow, seems really, really powerful and deep, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Wow.
there's kind of a couple of things there, which is it's like the initiation you talked about, which is sort of seems like in a way, I don't want to say that we have to go there, but it seems that that is the way to sort of break free and bring our own sovereignty back. Because that's the moment when a friend of ours we did a podcast with previously, actually, they were around at the mother's and the mum said, we need a good war. And I thought, oh, and they said it. But what her thinking was she said, whenever something happens like that, it brings out the very best in people.
Yes.
And it's sort of matching up with what you're saying there when those moments come in where you feel that, oh my God, this is absolutely awful. What is this? It sort of brings up that something in you. I'm not having this. Hang on, I know something. I don't need anybody to back me up. We're going to do something, or I'm going to stand up, So it's interesting that journey. It sort of links, because I keep, as you're talking, drifting between as an individual and collectively. And I suppose it's sometimes finding that balance between what's going on with you as an individual, but I suppose it always connects collectively as well.
It always does. So, like, having this experience within myself and then observing the collective, I actually asked AI, believe it or not, we were speaking about this before.
Yeah.
ChatGPT, you can create images. I asked it to create an image of this is before the election. It was like a couple of months ago. I asked it to predict the current political climate in America. And it actually had an image of like all the left wing kind of ideology. There was freedom of speech, there was LGBT, there was like all of these like different concepts. And then on the other side there was like Christians with swords and shields and like the White House was a church.
Wow.
And it was like, wow, the fact that like AI's kind of like tapped into this sort of like left and right, like these ideologies that are quite polarized. And it's kind of like made that into an image. And I was just thinking, I thought it was quite scary, like at the same time, like to know that, that artificial intelligence can sort of read into that.
It does seem
to be fair, there's a lot to go at. And there's a lot.
Yeah.
It never, there's no coincidence that we're all here at this time. It is, whatever way you look at it, it's a very interesting time to be on the earth and having an experience here.
Yeah.
For absolute sure. Yeah. And things for me, there's two ways to look at it in the world right now. We can look at, oh my God, that's happening. I'm waiting for some guy somewhere to push a button and we're all going to get blown up or whatever. Or there's another way to saying everything's coming up. Everything's so obvious. There's just a lot playing out, And so I suppose it is the time now to not look for anybody to save us.
Yeah, well,
I think that's we were saying we were at a recent talk and somebody stood up and said, who's going to be our leader? Who's going to lead this revolution? It's like, we don't need a leader. Some of us are still looking for that in a way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's I think it's inherent in people that don't know who they are to want to seek for something outside themselves. Yeah. I think that it takes quite a lot of initiation experience to know who you are. The ancient Greeks, Socrates and people like that all talk about like knowing thyself is the way.
Yeah.
And also, there's cultures all over the world that bring us back to that self-awareness. I was in Peru recently and we went to the Inca Trail in Machu Picchu and like learning about the Incas and their spirituality is all about that. The Toltec, ancient civilization, they would do inner work on themselves where they would like the process of recapitulation, it's called, like where they would just sit with themselves and like heal themselves, like work through all of the trauma, bring back all their old parts back to themselves, and to know yourself. And also, like, you know, Eastern philosophies as well, come back down to self-awareness. And it seems like that culturally there is when it comes to like ancient spirituality, there is a lot of similarities in that.
Yeah.
The only one really that's kind of separate to that would be like Christianity, in the way that that's where we have to have a savior. You know, the only way that you can overcome your sin is to be forgiven, you know. And you have to pray to Jesus, or, you know, I don't really know the full philosophy of it, but there does seem to be this avoidance of wanting to take responsibility for yourself, taking credit for yourself as well. But I think that it doesn't necessarily just have to be in religion. You know, people, you know, before this sort of new wave that's kind of come up of religion and Christianity and spirituality, before that it would be like celebrities or, you know, or political figures, or, you know, there's always like some figure outside of the self that has to be worshipped.
Yeah.
I don't believe in worship. My belief is that we should worship ourselves. You know, I believe that we are the creator. We
should celebrate who we are.
We should celebrate.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking before, it was like the podcast before the podcast, we should call it, like backstage. And but about these figures in, you know, not just in Christianity, but different leaders, political leaders and that are being revealed. But why is that happening? You know, to show us, you know.
People are doing the work on themselves. Yeah. So I think, like you said, I believe that anything that happens is for our greatest good. So what we don't heal as an individual, as a collective, we project and we allow that to happen. These celebrities, leaders, even the religious organizations are only there because we allow them to be there. You know, we talk about prisons are a reflection of where society has failed. You know, it's all about a perspective, but as we're purging everything, I think everything's coming to the surface. People are questioning everything. Coming back to your first point, I think that is one of the most important things for anybody, is to question everything. Our curiosity is what brings our awareness. Be curious, tear things apart, question everything. I think people don't question enough, and ask questions. It's important as well, isn't it?
I think that you hit the nail on the head there with curiosity.
Yeah.
I think that curiosity brings an innocence to exploration of yourself. I think that that's really important as well when you're looking at yourself, looking at your own patterns, is to be curious. People can often fall into that trap of doing the work on themselves as well. And I've seen that. I've seen people go from deep into delving into the shadow work to deep into worship and, you know, religious figures.
Yeah.
And it's like one extreme to the other. But the reasoning behind that is that, you just get stuck in the shadow work and you know, and you never end up getting any progress. There's truth to that.
Yeah.
There is, because people do endless shadow work and they're just consumed by it.
Yeah.
And I think that the key to shadow work, to looking at yourself, to observing and clearing all patterns, you do have to make changes. You have to be willing to change, first of all, but you do have to be curious, because if you're not curious, then you end up falling into that trap of judging yourself.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to fall into this pattern of, I'm not making any progress, I'm not good enough. This is the trap.
Yeah.
I believe that the biggest trap in the shadow work is that belief of not being good enough. Because everything always leads back to, I'm not good enough in the shadow.
Yeah. It's almost like it's like self-pity, like feeling sorry for yourself almost, do you feel?
It's more to do with like the ego. If you think about the ego is the masks that we wear. Carl Jung talks about the persona.
Yeah.
It's the masks that we wear that we have to fit in with society. Yeah. But most people in society become the mask. They become identified with it, that they don't know who they really are.
That's why we wear those masks.
And the thing is that the ego will kind of self-perpetuate. It has like a feedback loop of self-perpetuation by confirming to itself or to you that you're not good enough to be you. That's the thing, is that most people feel not good enough to be themselves. Now, the problem, how this ties into shadow work, is that when people are unable to make the progress that their ego expects, then they slip back into that pattern of I'm not good enough. And you can, I see it with many, many, many people that come to me for treatments, and I'm actually writing a book about it in a minute, why we aren't getting better. And the reason we're not getting better is because people feel not good enough. Not just that, there's many other reasons as well, like identity and also, but what it is that it's a deep underlying belief that we're not good enough to be us. That's where most of the patterns that we have, most of the shadow stuff that's created comes from, because we actually don't feel good enough. I mean, society breeds that. It does. You know, we're not in a culture where we're raised to feel good enough.
But do you not think
that's what I was going to ask you, sorry, do you think it's a bit sort of ingrained in our programming, you know, in every part of it, to sort of, I don't want to say keep us at a certain level, but feed that belief, I suppose.
Yeah.
It'd be a better way of putting it.
But in a way, we do have we have this device, it's like an AI.
Yeah.
I think the ego is like an AI, how it works. It's an intelligence for sure.
Yeah.
It's artificial because of what it likes to absorb and what it likes to believe. Because the ego doesn't really like the truth.
Yeah.
It likes fantasy. It likes half truths.
Yeah.
and it also simultaneously likes to feel not good enough and wants to try and avoid not feeling good enough. It's the problem and the solution for its own madness. It's constantly looking for a way to avoid that pain of low self-worth. That be validation, people pleasing, whatever that might be, some way to avoid, or addiction, some way to escape that feeling, which is it. I mean, we all carry it on some level, that worthless feeling. It's, our ego is based around that, because then it has to create on a mask to pretend that we're not. So have you ever been, not having a good day and then been around people and had to pretend to feel good? Well, that's great. We've got an ego that can do that. We can pretend. Yeah, it's the ultimate actor. It wants us to be able to adapt. We have to adapt into situations. We've got to be completely truthful at all times.
Yeah.
It'd be like liar, liar, wouldn't it?
Yeah. It would, wouldn't it?
Fantastic.
I wonder if would that be like as a spiritual?
I suppose
not liar, liar. Sorry, the invention of lying. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
There's a lot in that.
That's your Ricky Gervais.
Yeah, Ricky Gervais.
Anyone who's not seen that, watch it. But
it's brilliant.
I suppose it's when it sort of bleeds into everything then.
Yeah.
With the ego side, where you're actually constantly playing out.
But the
and
ego,
and deep down, you're not going to be satisfied with that.
Yeah.
There's going to be surely a yearning of this isn't fulfilling. It's like being, sometimes I've looked at it, it's like being a director of your own life, but you're not living it.
Absolutely.
But everything must also, the ego is probably there for a reason as well, isn't it? It must have been, do you think it's a natural creation and it's part of maybe our growth and our learning?
I believe it's absolutely necessary, but I think that there's an inherent desire from the ego to want some fantasy. I think there's that need, like the ancient Greeks they created drama so they could project it onto a theatre.
Yeah.
And that was their way of expressing that inherent desire to want to have like theatrics and theatre, but we don't have that outlet as much. So we don't realise that we can do that. We can fantasize about something, but then realise that it's a fantasy. We actually project our inner fantasies onto reality and expect them to become true. And what happens when our fantasies or expectations don't become true?
Get
We get disappointed.
Yeah.
And then after disappointment, we usually react quite badly.
Yeah.
And then after that, we usually normally feel not good enough again.
Is that wow? Yeah. I just started thinking. I thought we all do that in a way, don't we? Have this expectation of people, knowing that person's not going to be the person who you know they are, but there's an expectation of that person, and you get disappointed.
Exactly.
So accept the person who they are, and you'll never be disappointed.
I think that acceptance, radical acceptance, is how you overcome your shadow. Radical acceptance. Not accepting or condoning bad behaviour that's put towards you, but acceptance of things that you can't change. I think ultimately. Yeah. Secondly is let go of expectations.
Yeah.
Let go of expectations. Don't expect anything from anyone, and you'll be a much happier person. Thirdly, if you do get triggered, try your best not to react and take total responsibility for your trigger. One thing that always sticks with me is nobody makes you feel the way you do. It's quite simple, but it's quite thought-provoking, is that it's true. Nobody makes you feel the way you do. Only your perception of what that person's saying or doing makes you feel the way you do. Now, you can't change what anyone else is doing, but you can totally change the way that you think about it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's huge in overcoming a pattern. I mean, even this, this fear of eternal damnation that I was subscribing to that. And then, these experiences took place, and I kept them the actual experience took place, but then in my mind, I kept going back to it, but I was still subscribing to that. So I stopped reacting to it, and I decided I wasn't going to believe in that anymore. And it let go. I think that you have to do that, because ultimately what drives these patterns, this shadow stuff, is belief in it. We have to, we have to give it energy.
And how much energy do you think there is we give all that?
Oh my God.
How much energy we must waste on utter rubbish?
And it's interesting because I've done this when I've traced back as well. When people have these breakthrough moments, any sort of breakthrough moments, when you have a realization, what's the first thing most people want to do? They want to tell somebody. Yeah. They want to tell somebody they love, they care about. Oh my God. Yeah. Everybody's got to know about this, and there could be a very, very big disappointment coming in that. Yeah. Of this person isn't having that experience that I'm having. Yeah. They're up to where they're up to, and I think that's a big part of the path of things as well.
And it doesn't discovery.
It doesn't validate their experience. It's like where everyone has this need to. When I say everyone, I'm overgeneralizing now.
Yes.
People have this need to be validated in everything that they do. Now, even if that's a positive experience that, changed their life, it can instantly bring them back to that same mindset again. Yeah. If someone doesn't believe it. I remember the first time I've done ayahuasca, I was like, oh my God, I need to tell the world, like, this is the most amazing thing that happened to me. Like, this is fantastic. Oh my God, I felt so good. I wanted to tell everyone. I started telling people. And then it was only took one person to go. So basically, you've been on drugs all weekend. And you were just tripping. And then the doubts starts coming in. And the minute that doubt starts coming, the magic of what you've just created dissipates.
And I suppose it goes back to that loop you talked about of seeking the acknowledgement, and when we're not getting it, then going back to I'm not good enough, questioning again.
Exactly. Yeah. But the thing is, I know we've gone like a big leap, but back to the collective and how that ties in is that the collective's stuck in this pattern of not being good enough as well, because people don't feel powerful enough. It's like we need something outside of ourselves. We need a leader, like you said. Yeah. We need a Donald Trump. We need a whoever to lead us, to save us from the world. But actually, what we really need to do is to save ourselves. Yeah. And then things will really change. Yeah. That's what I believe. And I think that we've got a lot more playing out to happen yet. Yeah. I think that, recently, like last night, for example, watching on mainstream American news, details about UFOs, UAPs, and alien life forms and
Yeah.
higher intelligences and things like that. I'm thinking something definitely shifted.
It started,
the
it started last year though with that guy coming out. Do you remember following him? He was coming out and he was working in Antarctica, and he was working for the UFOs and aliens and things, and that was coming up in Congress about a year ago.
Oh yeah, I think
Do you remember that last year or the
yeah.
year before? So where do you think it's going to go then? Do you think there's going to be some stuff that's going to come out?
Well, Donald Trump said that he's going to try and get it declassified. I think that they're teasing it already, because I had to, when there's like something like this happens, I tend to just like look at the newspapers and see how they're doing it, and it's being drip fed already into mainstream news articles. So I think that they're probably building up for a disclosure sometime.
But I talk about conspiracy theories and all of it here, is that I believe that over the past 50 years, it does seem to have, particularly movies, what way to prepare a population is to drip feed things like movies about aliens and things like that. But a lot of them are very negative, aren't they? I think apart from Star Trek, that I find quite enlightening, in my opinion. So I think, I mean, there's stuff coming out that the CIA funds a lot of movies. So there is an agenda. Do you think there's an agenda that they've been pushing?
I don't know. It's hard to say, but I've only just started really looking at it. Not really been my thing. I'm not really an alien guy. But I just so happened that last night I was watching it and I thought, oh, this is interesting. It was streamed live on CNBC and it was on like Forbes magazine. And you're just thinking, you know, that these 4 people swore on oath that there was alien spacecraft and but they're like, government, like worked in the military and all kinds.
But the question is, why now? I always question, is there an agenda of the shadow? Is the agenda of the light? Or what's happening?
I don't believe in the shadow agenda. I believe it's there, but I believe it's all part of the light.
Yeah.
I don't believe, that's my belief, that's my faith, is that I believe that, well, just through my own experience, I've developed this faith through my own experience of like some really dark stuff happening. But actually, it's always brought me back to more towards the light.
Yeah.
That actually the dark is serving the light.
Yeah.
That's my belief.
The duality, isn't it?
The duality. The Incas are the same. The Incas they're very dualistic in their understanding.
I really believe
ancient
that.
Chinese.
Well.
The darkness is there. So I mean, the ancient Greeks, for example, they would worship, and other pagan cultures would worship the darker archetypal energies. Not worship, but like acknowledge
the part in the divine plan, I think.
Exactly, yeah. Because I think that because they're all, it's a part of the cosmos. I think that whenever we try to suppress a certain part, we're just, like this, then what happens is we breed the opposite. Whenever we take one extreme, it always creates an opposite. I believe that's a fundamental law of our universe. Hermetic principles, you look at the Kabbalion.
Yeah.
These principles, I believe, are what govern our universe. And that, I think it's really important to not reject or suppress any of these archetypal forces, whether they're gods or not, whatever it is you want to call them.
Yeah.
I believe that they are forces of nature that are governing us, the planetary systems of, the Roman belief, the ancient Greek belief around how these beings were associated with planets. And I believe that, that the precession of these planets does have an effect. I mean, I feel it.
Well, look how the moon affects us.
The moon massively affects us.
Yeah.
Like last week, I was going through a huge process of feeling this like energy of lack. And I'm like, what is this? And looked up the moon and said, oh wow, yeah, everything all correlates towards that. Being a Taurus, and I think that when you've done like a certain level of deprogramming yourself, you're always going to still go through these processes. I think that it's just a natural part of like the death and the rebirth of, old and new.
Yeah.
Like we go through into the seasons, we go into the autumn and winter, we start to shed things, we start to slow down. If we're not like looking outside for ourselves, we're still going to be experiencing these things. And I think that's what people tend to feel like, oh, the shadow box work's not working because you're not feeling like blessed and like completely enlightened every single day.
Yeah.
Because we're a part of nature. And nature has its, growth and fall and things like that. So I think that
put really well that, I think, because I do feel there are a lot that will look for that, almost that end game of like, big celebration, that's it. And I think you put that well, almost coming in seasons and waves. I find that things got all this bit of heaviness, a bit of shedding going on. You can feel it. And the one thing I will say is I think the more you experience it, the more you'll know it'll pass.
Yeah.
This is going to pass.
Exactly.
I'm not totally stuck at the bottom of the barrel. It's going to pass. So I feel like it's just, I suppose, reading ourselves in that way.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's a bit of a programming as well. I mean, you were talking about movies. It's always, you know, the good guy and the bad guy. The bad guy gets wiped out, and then we have a big celebration at the end, and it's all over. Whereas it's more about things being in union and acceptance. That word's been used a lot in this podcast so far, you know. Yeah. So I think that's a good point you made about those ways. And that's where, again, the disappointment can come.
Yeah, it is.
We're going to have this moment.
Yeah.
And hang on, might be a little bit more to do, or maybe just come up out the water and get a breath. And
well, it's like the coming of Jesus kind of thing is this prophecy of, you know, the revelations and the the second coming. I mean, people are still saying that now throughout history for the last 2,000 years. Every single epoch, every single era that we've been in, there's always been these sinning prophecies. Oh, it's in our lifetime it's going to come. In our lifetime it's going to come.
Yeah.
And it never comes.
But do you not think was the denying the shadow side, or the denying everything because all light and love, that is in a way playing into that constant wheel that you're always going to be on? You're never going to go off.
Yeah.
So it's in a way working against them by this false belief system that someone's going to save them, and actually entraps them forever.
Yeah. I believe that is.
And it's going to be forever. That's the hell, actually, not the lie. It's actually the hell.
I believe that. That's my personal belief. But what's quite interesting though, so there is this kind of resurgence of belief in religion, but now this alien thing pops up. I mean, the alien thing could be something to completely upset a lot of religious.
When we first got in this work, actually, the lady, the group that brought us in, lovely group, and they used to say that. They used to say, you know, if anything ever happens from another world comes down, well, that's religion out the window straight away.
But would people believe it?
Everything's got to be questioned.
People will always doubt. If they have if people have a certain belief about something, that in their mind it works for them, whether that's creating a bubble or not. It doesn't matter. It's called cognitive dissonance. If something comes along, even if the truth was placed on the table in front of them, the majority would choose not to believe it.
That's with any kind of even self-healing, isn't it? That's why nobody can really heal anybody. You have to heal yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to do that inner work, and that's the same with that as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
What would your sort of advice be for people that way then, who are perhaps finding it difficult in navigating that in what they see when they want to change things, or I can do this person good, I can do certain things good, and then they're finding themselves in this, I'm not accomplishing what I'm trying to accomplish in a way, you know. We're talking about it, but there may be people who are in the middle of it right now, you know, going through that. Yeah.
Well, I can actually give advice on that because I've been in that part myself. Yeah. And my late teacher, Barbara, I used to do quite a lot of work with her, and I remember a time when I was really frustrated that people weren't waking up.
Yeah.
So to speak.
Yeah.
I don't like using that word now.
No.
Waking up, it's just got so much thrown out of context. But I actually asked her, what should I do? You know, I'm so frustrated with people not waking up and not listening. And she said, be like a lake, a nourishing place for people who are thirsty for truth. But don't throw them in, because lakes don't do that.
Wow, there's a lot of teachings in that, isn't there?
Yeah, that's good advice. And yeah, I think those moments that we talked about when you have those awakening moments, I'm not too keen on that now. That's been blown out of context, hasn't it, really? I think that's the way. I mean, when I got involved in this work, we were in a home circle, like I said, And I used to think, yeah, we're doing something here, we're saving the world, it's going to be a better place no matter how. And actually, come to me last week, I've not thought about that in years. And I just sat there meditating, come back to save ourselves. That's what it's about. And in turn, like what you learn and coming into your knowing now gives a place, a sanctuary for people who are seeking that they can come where it's asked. Because somebody will say, you know, I'm looking for a bit of assistance. But I suppose people can't be dragged in off the street, can they? It's not the way it works. And it's not and you, in a way, we're interfering as well, aren't we?
I think that also it's really important, especially in this age now of like unfiltered information. I think it's great. So I'm not like into like censorship or anything like that. I think that it's great that there is so many avenues where people can find out information, but at the same time, there's massive risk in that because there's so much misinformation.
Yeah.
And there's so many conspiracy holes or wormholes or whatever, you know, of like voids of illusion. Now, I'm not going to proclaim that I know the truth. You know, I've spoke to, you know, flat people who believe in the flat earth and things like that. Personally, I don't.
Yeah.
But, you know, if someone came along and they put evidence, you know, if someone showed me the end of the earth or someone showed me, you know, here is something to disprove your belief that the earth is round, apart from the YouTube videos and whatnot, if there was, you know, quite substantial evidence to show that it was, then I would be like, okay, fair enough, I was wrong. So I think first of all, you have to be able to accept that you're wrong. I think this is really good advice for people, is to accept that you might not be right. I'm the same. Like, you know, recently this year, I've done a lot of questioning of my own beliefs. And it's actually brought me to a very, very grounded place. And I'd probably say I'm more grounded now than I ever have been, which is interesting as a, you know, spiritual worker and, you know, working with plant medicines and things like that. You know, it can quite often make you feel a bit more floaty, but I actually feel so much more grounded now than I ever have done. So much more safe in my own body. And with all the madness out there, there's so many different varying beliefs. I actually feel more centered just by letting go of that need to know as well. Yeah. So trying to sort of, like, it's good, like you say, come back to that, what you said about curiosity. I think that just being curious, but not holding on to a belief. So be curious, go into these different avenues of belief, have a look at it, you know, from a distance. Don't go in and just grab any beliefs, because you can end up going down a diversion and holding on to a belief of something that might end up giving you a huge disappointment when you find out that it's not real.
I suppose it's in the time where we sort of step away from the, you know, like the obvious places that we'd look for information and alternatives that are appearing and that are everywhere now, that we have to be equally as discerning in some ways. Not just going, well, this alternative sort of accepts everything. Whereas you still have to be discerning of, does it feel right?
Absolutely.
Does it line up?
It's so true, because I've actually had experiences with people before, clients who decided to go, like, have become seriously ill. And there was one particular person that became seriously ill, and he refused medical treatment for a cancer, because at the time she was in this, I don't trust any of the medical system. And unfortunately she died, you know, when she could have had a simple procedure. And then that was a few years back. And then someone recently was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and they were having treatments from me. And I said to them, so what you can, recently on, they literally found out in the space in between the second and third treatment. And they said, what should I do? And I was like, oh, I can't tell you what to do. What do you feel that you should do? And he said, I feel like I should get the operation, because they said that they can do it, but friends are trying to convince me to do this cannabis oil and do this and do that. And I was just thinking, that's dangerous. It's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater kind of thing. Is that just because, the pharmaceutical industry, you know, I'm pretty sure that most of viewers will know that it's corrupt as hell.
Yeah.
We can't trust the pharmaceutical industry. But if you needed antibiotics or something, well, you should take it. 100%. If you got sepsis, you're not going to go, oh, I don't trust you, and then just die.
Yeah.
because that just doesn't make sense.
You're falling into that another illusion in itself again, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's something we were talking about the other week, and I actually watched somebody we did a podcast with, Gareth, a few episodes back, who was and people who were involved or have been involved in the medical industry. And he made a very good point. He said, where we're at now, we are understanding things beyond that there are other ways. But also there are need for things like skilled surgeons still.
Of course.
So if you're going to break something, there is currently where we're at now, that's go and have it done. Get it done. And it's the balance of, I suppose, when you talk about being grounded, not losing things and going, this is what I need to do. And I feel the same. It can be very dangerous going that route. A friend of ours who would dealing with a heart condition many years ago, and she would get a channeling from spirit when they said time to go and see the medicine man, and that would be very rare because they won't always want to go in hospitals because of a condition. But they'd say it's time now. So there is a place.
Absolutely,
there is a place for it.
And I think that what a lot of people can fall into, especially when they first start looking at conspiracies, is that, oh my God, the whole entire government, every single, thousands of people that work in the government, they're all like evil monsters.
Yeah.
But that's not true. Because there's people that actually, have these positions that actually, probably lower tier, but like actually want to do good for people. There's going to be that there.
Yeah.
It's not totally bad.
Yeah.
There is going to be, my belief is that there is a lot of big corporations that have been running, families that have been running the world for a long time, and they have things going the way that they like it, and they're probably in the pockets of a lot of corruption politicians, but I don't believe that they all are. And I think that it's easy to fall into that trap of like everyone is evil or everything is a conspiracy.
Do you think it plays in a little bit to the victim mentality a bit? Because I've heard this sometimes where, we know in many ways it's a business now, but you can always say no. So if you go and see a doctor or you get medical advice and they said, this is what I advise, you can always say no. It's a choice whether to have it or not.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you have the choice.
You do.
Or you can say, that's not for me. Walk out.
But it comes down to people not knowing who they are either. They don't know their body. So there's a lot of dynamics to it.
Ideology again, and for many years the doctor was especially the local family doctor, that was the be all and end all for a lot of people.
I grew up thinking, I remember when I was a child thinking, oh my God, this is great life, because if I'm ever sick the doctor will just fix me.
Again, it's the same thing we're talking
about. So this is, I think, probably, I've never really thought of this, but this is probably one of my earliest lessons of putting that power outside of myself, because actually from when I was a teenager, I was diagnosed with a bowel condition, and I ended up having to take medication, and I was taking that for a long time. And the doctor, when I finally wanted to stop taking the medication, I figured out a way to heal myself from that. And he said, no, you're going to be on them for the rest of your life. And this was the doctor that I'd had my whole life. And I thought, oh my God, like this is like my whole illusion of like the doctor. Is this savior. Ultimately, it's the same thing. It's that, we're always doing that. We're putting outside of ourselves a savior on someone else.
We do that subconsciously, and I think that's where a lot of the conditioning and the programming happens as children. So we're easily manipulated, or allow ourselves to be easily manipulated as well. But there's a lot of kids now that are, for me, I believe, are vibrating at frequency. They're questioning a lot more now. A lot of kids now are a lot more aware, I think.
I'll talk about absolutely. Would agree with that.
But I just wanted to mention what you were saying before about, I was reading up actually about the word ignorance, and actually it's okay. And it was funny because during a healing session, there was this voice that come to me and said, one of your big lessons you're going to learn this year and next year is it's okay not to know. It's okay. That's a pattern that I know, that I'm aware. I feel like I have to know. And actually sometimes the best teachers, the best, whatever you want to call yourself, actually, I don't know. And actually ignorance is not a bad thing. I think there's not enough people to say, actually, I don't know that. and are just repeating stuff that have been conditioned in them. And I know that's a pattern that I've done, and I'm just passing on something. And do you really know that? And I think that's something that I'm hoping to learn. It's okay not to know something.
I believe that everything that we need to know, we already know. And that actually, now this might seem quite abstract way of looking at things, but I believe that we already know what we need to know. And then situations will come into our life to reveal to us that inner knowing that we already have.
Right.
That's my philosophy and belief on it. That actually we don't need to know anything external from what we already know, but that inner knowing just needs to be revealed to us.
Do you think that's what helps when we build communities like have been built really a lot, and not just like yourself, but the Inner Gurus at the Purple Mountain, there's many other places, in connecting with people as they connect that way and they talk about their experiences, so that they're able then to go to discover that in a way, and to not seeking validation, but being shown what they already know. So they're going, I've always known that. I think a lot of us have had that moment. God, I don't know what it is. I've always known.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, I think that the community, like tribe, is really important. As we move forward now into these years, but especially 2026, I was reading recently, is where the planet of Saturn lines up with Neptune. Apparently that only happens every like 36 years or something, but every time that lines up, there's like huge like change taking place. I think that moving forward into these times, I think it's really important that we do have community.
Yeah.
Because community, like you said, does bring out the best in us. It can bring out the shadows as well, but that's good if it's done in a way where people are conscious.
Good to be, in a way, it's good to be challenged, you know.
It's good to be
as we have
challenged,
conversations, we're constantly testing each other's boundaries, and we're learning the very positive aspects of that. We can learn a lot from each other that way.
But I think what you're saying about like validation in that, you're right, because it's not looking for validation in that. Sometimes we didn't know, because I think that what's blocking these deeper layers of understanding ourselves are that need for validation that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
And then sometimes when like a group think comes together and ignites this resonance, I think sometimes it takes that release of like, oh wow, I didn't know that already. But what's actually happening is that need for validation, or that doubt. I wouldn't say need for validation. Let's not even say need for validation. Let's just say doubt.
Yeah.
You know, because the need for validation comes from trying to avoid that doubt within you. You know, doubting yourself, you need to be validated. But the doubt is still living within that person. And then in a group thing where somebody shares something and it resonates, then that doubt lifts. It's like, oh wow, someone else is feeling that as well.
Yeah.
And then that then brings that person closer to themselves. So I think that communities can be really helpful for that, because it's like us sitting here now.
Yeah.
You know, there's probably been things that we've said, like what you mentioned about doctors, for example, that like clicked this thing in me of like, oh wow, yeah, I had a doctor as a savior role when I was younger, or whatever we've been talking about. There's probably been some sparks of that within yourself, or hopefully people that are listening.
Yeah,
as well.
For me, it's what it's all about. When we have these conversations and putting it out there with like-minded people and people who are connecting with us this way, going, you know, it could really resonate with what's being said, and it sort of brings forward their knowing, empowers them even more. You know, and I'm the same, Lewis, as when we ever do anything like this, it'll sort of set me on a train of thought, maybe for the rest of the day or something, that's like sowing a seed. And I go, oh yeah, and comes back to that word, which I think is an excellent word, it's curious. I think it's always good to be curious about, and it can bring a lot of different reactions that sometimes. Like, oh, don't question that. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? Let's tear it apart and talk about things.
I think that we should also be curious with like people that are who we're in relationships with and like dynamics.
Yeah.
Because we can always, especially people that we're close to, we can get engaged in these patterns.
Yeah.
We can automatically react to ways that we're perceiving that person to be, because we take it personally. I think that curiosity can be a way to like not take things personally. You know, if someone says something to you that maybe like triggers you, rather than reacting, just be like curious. Like, I think that that's a really good way to diffuse a pattern and to like overcome it, is to just take a step back and just be curious. Like, why is this person acting like this? Why is this person saying it? Because it's never, if someone's reacted towards you, it's never about you. It's about them. It's how you react about you. But if you can stop your reaction, just remain curious to what that other person is going through, then it can help you to better understand that person. And that'd be
So true.
because a lot of the time, dynamics, the other person's projecting that you don't understand me.
Yeah.
And then if you react, then it confirms that belief that they're not being understood.
There's a saying, isn't there? It's be curious, not judgmental.
It prevents judgment. I think curiosity is like the remedy for judgment.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, you're questioning why, instead of like, if it is a conversation with somebody else and something's coming out, and instead of you being wounded or anything, actually looking, like you said, and saying what's actually happening here. Let's look at it from a bit of a wider perspective instead of just jolting back.
Don't take things personal.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a massive one. So don't have expectations. Try not to react. Don't take things personally. Stay curious.
I suppose this leans onto, you can't talk about this without the word being offended.
Oh, well.
Because that's a big thing and I believe you have to choose to be offended.
You do have to choose.
Yeah.
I remember I put a post on Facebook a couple of years ago, and it said, and it triggered a few people, but it also raised a few heads as well, like with people like, fair dues, I really like that. And it said, if you're offended, that's the reason why I'm happy and you're not.
I think I've seen that.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
Like, you can choose to be offended by everything.
Yeah.
You know, and you can fall into that trap. It's like the political correctness and all this. It's like, I'm sorry, but I can fuck off.
Yeah, it's a big part.
It's another way to control, isn't it? It is rubbish. It's bullshit.
It is.
Yes. And there's many things, and I'm not going to pinpoint one thing at all, but it's like, I don't know anybody that talks like that or thinks like that.
No.
I don't meet anybody that's, you know, and if people had these opinions that are being thrown out through the system, I feel, then you would know it. Somebody on your street would be like that, or a friend of yours, and I just don't see much of it. And I think I'm absolutely with you. I think it's total bullshit. And I think what it is also, which seemed the point where we all sort of laughed there, is don't take things too seriously.
No.
They take reality too seriously.
To enjoy our experience.
Yeah.
Let's not get too locked in and
To
start.
celebrate life.
It's great.
Yeah.
To celebrate life. Don't take this
Like, if we start picking every single leaf off a tree, and it's just so distracting.
Yeah.
And you could be missing doing something that's really great and wonderful and
Yeah.
fulfilling, you know.
But that comes down to people, and I've had this in ceremony where, you know, the medicine showed me how so many souls entrap themselves in their reality, in their perception.
Yeah.
And actually, it's like water. You go in and you go back out. Don't take it. It's not real. It's just part of that soul's experience. Yeah. But people label themselves, and they think that's who they are. And actually, you're much more. You're much more, and celebrate that part of you. Have fun, enjoy it. Don't take things too serious.
Yeah. It's attachment, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
It's attachment. Yeah. And like the book that I'm writing at the minute is about why we're not getting better. And one of the main reasons why we don't get better is because we identify with things. We attach ourselves to labels, identities, and even destructive patterns and illnesses and things like that. We'll become so attached to it that it prevents growth when you attach yourself. It's good to be like, but again, just to avoid being attached to things, just stay curious. Always.
Yeah. Do you think ultimately as well, even with any form of, you know, healing or plant medicine, there are still those who seek the cure. In a way.
Absolutely. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is going to
yeah.
be the cure. But ultimately, you always have a choice.
Yeah, it's
You-
not the cure.
Yeah.
It's not. It's a tool.
Yeah.
It can help you to access things within yourself, and it can guide you as well. But at the end of the day, it's just a tool.
Yeah.
It's not inherently a medicine unless your intention is there for it to be a medicine.
Mm.
If people just want, like, I've met people before that have been doing ayahuasca ceremonies and things like that and work on themselves for years, and they're still doing around the same patterns. They're still doing the same things because they're just not owning the shit.
Yeah.
They're not doing the work on themselves. So the real work, I'll be honest, the real work is quite hard. It can be because what's hard is because the ego doesn't like to accept that it was wrong, and it doesn't like to let go of attachments.
Yeah.
So that's why people don't get better, is because they don't want to face that discomfort that it takes to actually admit that you're wrong. There's nothing more painful to the ego than to stand there in front of someone and say sorry.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
Yeah.
Fucking hell, yeah.
You're triggering me. It is. It's hard though.
It is.
That's where the real growth, and it's having them. Like, I think real growth is in having those uncomfortable conversations that you're avoiding.
Yeah.
You know, facing the things that are like stuck there underneath that you're thinking, oh, this is just going to blow over, and you know, it's like that knocking on the door. You know, you need to say something. You need to voice your truth. You need to step up, even if that means it's going to upset someone. You know, you have this. You do. I mean, the real growth is in this kind of work that's like, oh, I don't really want to go there.
The cringe, isn't it?
It's
That's
the
what I
cringe,
call it,
yeah.
stepping into the cringe.
But this is it. It's like this cringe has been created through years and years of conditioning, and shame, and you know, like this my inner work, which I believe over the last 10 years has been deprogramming a lot of this stuff. And you know, I have to say it, like a lot of this shame and fear has been created by the church over the years.
Yeah.
Before that, things were a lot more liberal. I mean, the Greeks were quite liberal. They didn't tend to have as much of this fear and shame. Shame was definitely something that was imparted on us by the church.
Well, I think anything that says, well, if you don't do that, this is going to happen, is, you know, it's fear-based, isn't it?
Yeah.
I remember when we were quite new to any form of spirituality, and that was one of the first things that was brought forward to us as an opinion of saying, you know, religions are fear-based.
Absolutely.
That most religions are very fear-based. You know, I'm not knocking anybody that you do what you want to do, but they are fear-based. If you don't do this, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
If you don't follow these set of rules, and to me, if I even encounter that in any other part of life, it sort of makes me stand back. There's on the back of my neck, go up and go.
Yeah.
Oh. It's like ultimatums.
Yeah, it exactly. Yeah, you know, and if it all turns out that, you know, we were wrong when we passed the pearly gates and we're condemned to,
we'll all be together, Lewis. We'll be all right. We'll all be together.
The other thing as well is, at least we'll be warm. We'll all have a barbecue together. But I think that's with the you know, what's coming back here is this thing of not taking things too seriously.
Yes, exactly. Because the thing is that these like imposed rules. Like, I totally agree with like the 10 Commandments, so to speak. You know, like, you know, this is just like law of the land stuff. You know, just general morality.
Yeah.
I think that morality is a compass that we all have inside of ourselves inherently.
Yeah.
I don't even think that it's something that we're taught. I think that inherently we have a moral compass.
Definitely, yeah.
I think that we can learn not to follow our moral compass, but I think that the moral compass is something that we have in us inherently.
I think that's part of the life. Do you know? I think that's that life frequency.
Life force in us has that morality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's only through lack and fear and all this like lower distorted energy, fears and beliefs that make us act immorally. I think that morality is there with us from when we're born. Now it's just my belief. I might be wrong. I'll accept that. I'll hold my hands up and say, "I must have proved me wrong." But that's my belief: is that that we're all born as moral beings, I think that inherently as humans, we are moral beings. Most people that you speak to, you can find that part of them within them.
I feel like
Everybody, I agree.
Deep down, though,
Everyone.
right from wrong. I think it's a little bit like you talked about there, where we possibly get stuck is the admitting of it or the acceptance of being wrong, where the ego comes in.
Exactly.
Because we'll just dust over that and carry on. Oh, but it's there. It's there. I feel like everyone got that.
Everyone
100%.
has. I think that the whole selling your soul concept comes down to actually just selling your morality.
Yeah.
You're going against it's the ego. You're allowing the ego to completely take over.
You're not going against your own nature then, in a way.
Yeah.
By not following that.
I believe so.
And that's what we create: psychic debt, karma, and blocks and trauma.
I believe that when you go against morality, you do create karma. I think that karma is essentially just the energy that's created within you when you go against
100%
your morality.
Yeah.
And that actually forms a part of your ego, I believe. I believe that it's underneath it, it's the driving force of it. And that energy that we create within us when we go against our morality gains strength. And I think that it only takes a certain amount of the build-up of that energy for then a karmic event, so to speak, to come around and trigger that. And it could be, but it's triggering it not as a punishment, but as a way to help us to see it. So then we can transform it.
It's working with us.
It's working with us.
That's why the universe is a mirror to us.
Yeah.
It's not our enemy. Everything that we create, we are part of that growth and evolution. Yeah. We are mirrors, aren't we? And what we don't heal, we attract. And the universe works with us to help. And this is why I believe that no one put tests for us. We create our own tests. So when we talk about that karma, that's our own crap. That's our own karma. So own it, take responsibility and learn from it. Learn to let go of it as well.
Yeah. You can actually, this is the thing about doing the work on yourself, like with medicines and things. You can consciously go in and clear this karma so it doesn't have to play itself out. And that's why most people who do like Kambo, medicine work, you can end up, having quite a blessed life because you're clearing the deeper layers of distortion that are within you so that the universe doesn't have to come around and go, here it is, process it, go through this, difficult scenario. The difficult scenario is there to help you to process that karma. It's not as a punishment to you. But when you do like medicine work or inner work on yourself, you can actually clear this stuff, go through that tough work so you don't have to then have that life situation come and reveal it to you. That's my belief. I actually tested this belief with a student who was on a part of this training course that I was doing. And he had this pattern of every relationship I get into, my girlfriend always cheats on me. And he was like, and now I can see the signs of it happening again. She's losing interest, and this is what normally happens, and then she'll end up going with it. But I was like, can see it. It's like, he's creating this. Totally like projecting this. It's like, oh, this is what happens, and then this is the next thing, and his story's playing out, and then what's going to happen is this going to happen, and then he'll be devastated and back to that fear not good enough again, as we said. That's always what happens. But I said to him that maybe when we do this inner work, it's called an alchemy program, where we look at the patterns, do combo and treatments to help to clear that. I said, make it your intention to clear this, whatever it is. So we explored where the pattern was, and it was him being abandoned by his mom and, and this kind of trauma. And then what happened is he was able to let go of that belief. His intention was to let go of that belief that his girlfriend's going to cheat on him. And I said, I bet you this will work. Like in my head, I was thinking, this is going to work. And so be it. He done the treatments. And then I got back in touch with him a couple of months after, and I said to him, how's things with you? Oh, amazing, best I've ever been.
Wow.
But if he hadn't have done that, he would have, because I believe that what it is that we believe within ourselves plays a part in co-creating the reality that we experience. Back to what we said about, the collective and how things are playing out and projecting. I believe that we all play a part in this collective experience. It's like the Trump and the Putins and all these different things. They're all like a part of our unprocessed shadow.
I 100% believe in that. Yeah.
And we're co-creating that together.
Yeah, definitely.
But if we can do that on a micro level, like we can like change our own patterns within ourselves, and we can stop things from playing out with myself that are constantly playing out, because you can do it. I've done it myself many times, looking at patterns, and then they've been playing out, and then in your head you're thinking this is a story, like a inevitable story that's going to keep playing out. And then when we change the beliefs around it, clear the energy, clear the trauma, it doesn't happen anymore. Working with many, many clients over the last 10 years, doing the same thing with them and then seeing their lives change. I can pretty much say that I know that this is something that's the truth, something that works.
Yeah.
Now, I think that if we can all do that on a micro level together, then that's how we're going to create a change on a shift
hugely,
in the collective.
Yeah, I was thinking that as you were saying it as well. It's stepping away from the stories we tell ourselves.
Stories
sometimes, because
it is though. It is, because it's like even last week, leading up to the full moon, I don't normally have like overwhelming feelings of lack. But interestingly, when I was away in India and I went to this Ganesha temple, I actually asked, part of the Diwali festival, I asked Ganesha to remove any blocks that were, because Ganesha is all about prosperity, and I thought, ask to remove any blocks that are linked to blocks in prosperity. And then last week, all that I was feeling was just this energy of lack. And I'm thinking, it was so hard, so like skillful almost, to remain curious with that and not go into a story.
Yeah.
Because I've kept catching my mind going, oh, this is failing, this isn't working. And I'm thinking, whoa, where's this coming from? Where's this thought coming from? It's not me. It's in me, but it's not me. And I think that's where that growth takes place, when we can really start to separate ourselves from what's actually in our mind and what actually is us, and what's programs and what's our awareness. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, it was interesting that this last week to observe this energy. It was really heavy, dense energy. And I was actually able to not react. I was close to, because it was like the energy was like, oh, maybe you should like pull some of these courses and don't put as many on, and keep small, and keep safe. Don't go into this growth. Don't go into this growth that you're going to be going to next year, because I've got a lot more planned next year. And it was like this safety. Oh, don't do that. You this lack. Not deserving as well. And it was like, I was observing it, and it was like, okay, there's this energy. It's feeling like it's not deserving of what's coming next year. Like I said, 2025 has always been going to be my year. So it's only natural, I believe, for these, blocks to come up to the surface. But there was even part of me that was thinking, should I do Kambo to try and shift this? And I was thinking, no, I'm just going to actually sit with it and observe it and allow it to come and pass, and not make any decisions while I'm going through that. And I thought that was really quite potent growth for me.
Wow.
To resort.
There's a lot of that. We talk about it all the time, don't we? That it's too easy then to use a healing modality to help shift from that. And sometimes you just need to be sat in nature, sit in your meditation, just be, and you'll ride it through. You don't always need something to alter that state. Sometimes it's best just to ride it through, just to sit with it. And we find that a lot with a lot of
it's
people.
something that I've sort of realised a lot, and looking into it, like somebody, for example, I've had this big argument, I've had this problem in my life, well, I'm going to go and have this, or I'm going to have that, or I'll sit with Kambo. And I've observed it, and some things you've got to experience, you've got to live through. We are here to experience it, and really that is a way of avoiding the experience. Even if it's going to feel a bit shitty, it's something you've got to feel fully to transmute it, to move through it. So
I think that there is a fine line. I think that if you are able to have that clarity, if you've got that clarity that something's moving through you, or you have that awareness of like, okay, I've got this feeling now, trusting that it's going to pass. I think that would be a good time to really sit with it. But sometimes people can get stuck in this, like, I've got no clarity, I don't know what's happening. And then I think that sometimes that can be a good time to go into medicine, especially like Kambo, because Kambo really does give you clarity on these things. I think that it's, if you are feeling the need to, like, if you're feeling icky and you need to, like, purge, and I think that there's a massive place for medicines, in that. But for me, during this time, even though I felt heavy, I was able to observe it and not identify with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was just trusting that the cosmological forces that were taking place, the full moon alignment in Taurus, which is my star sign, was coming into effect. And in the build up to full moons, usually I'm feeling the energy of it quite strongly.
Yeah.
And it does like bring things up. So I was very grateful actually for the moon, even though during it I was feeling a bit yuck.
Yeah.
I was still feeling very grateful. And then actually over the last couple of days it started to shift, and then things have started to like flow again.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's I suppose it sort of comes back to just knowing, just navigating things of what you feel to be right in that moment for you.
Exactly.
Whether it's something you need to just sort of experience and walk through, or whether some assistance is needed in some way or some modality.
Do you not think though as well, I was just chuckling in my mind, and it's part of that fun. We're here to have fun. You're participating. We're here to participate in the experience.
Exactly.
And and I think to celebrate that through the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Do you think this is where, because I know we've covered a lot, really, some really interesting subjects, but what I wanted to touch on a bit, and we kind of have done in some ways, is the word of sort of spiritual bypassing, where we have these moments or awakening, whatever you wish to call them, and we can actually go sort of too far in the clouds. We talked about it in terms of looking after the way we look after our bodies, in the not being a balance, or even in a way spirituality in some form being a way of avoiding our own trauma, looking at it.
Yeah.
We used to hear it, not as much anymore, but we've heard it. But I've healed everything, I've done that.
Yeah.
I'm all sorted now.
And the most wary of people that say that they're all sorted.
Yeah.
The most wary. Because it shows to me a clear lack of self-awareness.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe that anybody is all sorted. I think that we're constantly going through growth and evolution, and that the forces of nature are shaping and forming us all into something new constantly. Now, for someone to say that we've made it there is no made it there.
Yeah.
The forces of nature are constantly evolving us. And I believe that we're always at this new point of being, that there is no made it. We're constantly evolving. There isn't a point of that's my belief anyway. Is that I'm very aware of that. But as you talk about the term spiritual bypassing, I don't even really like to use the word spiritual bypassing because it doesn't really make sense. It's more just not taking responsibility.
Yeah.
And that takes place in all walks of life. But in particular, spiritual bypassing could probably refer to using spirituality as a way to bypass doing work on yourself. And like doing work, I believe, is just being aware at the end of the day and being able to take responsibility, learning about your triggers, learning how not to react. I believe that that's the work. And that if you're able to be self-aware and take responsibility for yourself, then that's what is not bypassing. That's being honest with yourself and being true, being grounded, trying to stay as present as possible. I think that's doing the work. Now, bypassing, on the other hand, is just rife in everywhere you go. Whether that be you go to an ayahuasca ceremony or you go to a church.
Yeah.
Bypassing can take place in any. Now, it might be that you're just genuinely going to a church because you just want to pay homage to the creator, and that's what you feel is right for you in your head, and that's fine. You might be going to an ayahuasca ceremony because you want to do the same. But when it comes to bypassing, is that when you feel the need to go to one of these things to take away your problems. Now, that's where it becomes a problem for me, is that no one is going to come and save you. No medicine is going to come and save you, and no person or no shaman or no healer is going to come and save you. You have to make that commitment to be honest with yourself, whether that be, I'm not going to go into the church dynamic, doesn't really work in this one, but like in the ayahuasca ceremony, for example, you can do it. I've done ayahuasca before and sat there, and I know that if I don't want to go somewhere, I won't go there within myself. You can kind of control it, to a degree. You can kind of go, I'm not willing to face that today, and it won't. If you go in there and like, I'm ready to face this, well, then you'll get what you're ready for at the end of the day. Now, I think that bypassing can also be in the form of taking on the role of a savior. I think that that's one that's not so much talked about, but I think that people can often feel that they get to this point of like, I've done the work now, where I have all this experience doing all this work now. Now I'm the space holder, and that's my position now, and I'm just here now to serve everyone else, and not actually recognizing that we need to do work on us. We need to keep ourselves in check.
Always.
It's about keeping yourself in check. Doing the work on yourself can just be maintenance. It doesn't have to be like, like constant, like, oh, I need to do this work on myself. It's just like keeping yourself in check, knowing where your triggers are, knowing where your blind spots are, knowing where your boundaries are, knowing, balance, understanding yourself, not taking things too seriously. That's doing the work on yourself. Yeah. Self-love, taking yourself for a nice hot bath, taking yourself for a massage, that's doing work on yourself. All of these things, it's not all about just processing trauma. Yeah. It's about doing all these other little things that are there to keep you in check. Now, a pitfall can be being that savior complex yourself, because I've been there myself, in periods of my life where I've actually been engrossed so much in trying to do healing work for other people that I've actually completely neglected myself. Yeah. That was one of the main reasons why I actually done the ceremony that I did on my own. I just woke up one morning, it was overwhelming, like, I need to do this medicine. It's like calling so strong. And then someone else said to me, oh, I'll sit in it with you. And something was just overwhelming, like, no. Because I knew that if someone else was in that ceremony, it's not going to be about me. Yeah. Only one other person there, that's it. Yeah. I'm taking that role of supporting that person, and then it wouldn't have been about me. And it was really hard, really hard ceremony, but very much needed. But I think that that's where a lot of people can fall into, especially if they're in the spiritual world, is that, oh, I'm going to be a yoga teacher now, I'm going to be a healer now, I'm going to be a plant medicine facilitator, I'm going to become a practitioner, or whatever. You can take on that role of like, avoiding your own problem because it soothes it. But the more people you can help, the more that you can soothe that inner pain. Because it does. It brings. I think most people that actually get drawn to do healing work actually have a little bit of that complex of like, we actually want to help people. But the main driving force for wanting to do that is because it makes you feel better. Yeah. Temporarily. Yeah. It's like a fix.
It is.
It's interesting now because it's something that I've I feel I've been sort of working on or breaking away from, is the expectation of an outcome in any form of spiritual work. So like predominantly I've done like readings, such like that. And in a way, in your heart, you want somebody to have the best experience they possibly can. And I had this realization that, oh no, that's like an expectation. And that's not only, can lead to other things, but also putting this practice, just do. And whatever comes of it is what's meant to happen. And letting go, that's pretty liberating as well.
Out of your control, really.
That's it. You just do your work, you do your part, and you've done.
That's how
And it's,
that's the same I treating or healing treatments now. It's I call you got to participate, encouraging the client that they are participating. They are doing that work on themselves. I'm not here to fix them. I'm not here to rescue them. And like when we talk about breath work, you're only going to get what you're willing to put into a practice. Yes, and if you're just going to sit there, that's all you're going to get. Yeah. And I think sometimes I've fallen into that trap many times, but you have to be aware of those patterns. You have to do a bit of that inner work on yourself. And for me, it's something that came to me in my meditations is that we are like flowers. We're in constant unfolding. We're unfolding all the time. And as we're doing that work, we're unfolding. And shit, there's more stuff here, and
Yeah.
it's exciting times,
it's
isn't
like,
it?
it's like you said, Lewis. It's so important to keep. There's always something. There's always something new, and that things are ever unfolding. I mean, even Dolores Cannon, for those who follow her, she would say that she would get to a certain point where she was like, "Oh, I know that. I'm quite comfortable with all that," and they would always bring something outside of it. Oh, I'm not so comfortable with that. Could you just leave it? And it's like, no, it's the way of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because once you're ready, you're ready for that little bit more, you're ready for that little bit more. And I suppose that's happening on a collective level. It has done over the past, maybe longer than 6 years. I'd maybe go even to 2011, 2012, when things really started to tweak. And you could see people really stepping into their own. A lot of people that we met that were just things were happening. And it's interesting because ever since I can remember being, involved in any sort of spiritual work, that we would always be waiting for a moment, but we didn't know what it was. And then in 2020, I thought, this is it. It's just not how we expected it to be. Here it is.
Expectation.
Things are coming. It's changing. It's
I think next year though, there's some events that are not going to take place. I think.
Do we need seatbelts?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. I think that's going to be quite bumpy, revelationary, and also bumpy at the same time.
Year of the snake next year, isn't it? In Chinese.
Oh wow! The snake is transformation.
Yeah,
definitely.
We've had the dragon this year.
Yeah. Wow.
He clears the energy. He was preparing what's going to happen for it.
Yeah,
the snake is very much a symbol about awakening as well. The snake in cultures all over the world.
Yeah, snake's very symbolic.
Yeah,
but particularly plant medicine.
Kundalini.
Force through the spine and clearing. But it's been a wonderful podcast.
Yeah, really. I feel like we've been on a bit of a journey here. We've always talked about, but it's great to share in this way and look into insights and really what's it come down to, simplifying things like you were. How do I get over this? How do I get better mentally, physically, spiritually, in every single way? And knowing ourselves and giving me lots to think about as well, which is always good. So I think it'd be good just to close things up, Lewis, because I know I would have liked to have talked about your recent travels, but maybe that's for another time. And I know that's something that's very, very important to you, amongst other things. But anything you want to share with anyone that you've got coming up? You do a lot of training and a lot of facilitating as well.
Yeah.
If maybe somebody's watching, say, who feels very drawn to reach out to you and connect.
Yeah. So next year I've got quite a lot of training courses for Cambo. The Cambo Practitioner Alliance is growing quite a lot, and next year I'm going to be traveling to different countries. Costa Rica, I've got a training course coming up in Scotland in December, and in London in March, and then Liverpool in February, and then Belfast in May. Wow. and then off to Costa Rica in July, and then next year in 2025 August 23rd until the 3rd of September, I'm going back out to stay with the Matsy's tribe again. The Matsy's tribe are the ones that collect our medicine. And we've got a real deep connection with their tribe, and they invite us to take part in their annual celebration of contact. Because on the 30th of August 1969, the Matsy's tribe were first contacted. And since then, they celebrate once a year by having where they all dress up and do these dances, tribal dances. Last year was the first time that they never had anybody outside of the tribe take part in it.
Incredible.
And we were there taking part in that, meeting the people there. So we're going to be doing that again next year. So that's something that's in the pipeline. And I just want to say a little bit of advice for anyone that's been listening to this and they're wondering what they can do to help with this collective awakening that's taking place, would be to keep observing your patterns. I think that we've covered the things about try not to expect too much from people, try not to react to situations, to not identify too much with belief systems, because there is going to be a whole new wave of belief systems that have come up to the surface. I think it can help you to stay grounded, to not attach yourself to these different belief systems, because I think that a lot of belief systems are going to come and go. But for the next couple of years, I think that there's going to be bubbles that are going to be popped, all over the place. So if you're in a bubble right now, then hold on tight, because I think that, illusions are going to be getting burst all over the place, which is ultimately a good thing. But it can be bumpy if you've got a strong attachment to some kind of belief system. And to try not to reach out for validation from anybody outside of yourself, and to recognize that you have everything that you need inside of you. You don't need anything from anyone else, and no one is coming to save you. You can save yourself.
Yeah. Absolutely, I'm so resonate with that. But it's been amazing, absolutely amazing podcast.
Thanks so much to anybody who's wherever you're watching or connecting with us, and feel free to have your say as well, in the comments below. And till we speak again. So goodbye, everyone.
See you later.